Hi, I'm Rob Booker, and I'm here with Scott Welsh, Boss Leader Trader Extraordinaire. And we're talking about Netflix. Netflix has had some problems recently, Scott.
They have. I got a letter in my email, actually, just yesterday from them.
Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, announced a few months ago, that they would split the pricing for their two programs in two. They would charge separately for DVDs by mail and streaming movies over the internet. And then, when there was a massive backlash against that decision, announced yesterday that they would split the DVD by mail business off completely and call it Quickster. Now, Netflix is a company that no one could get enough of, even what seems like just months ago, and has now lost 53% of its value, or even more than that, over the course of a very short period of time. And from the standpoint of the Boscillator, an established methodology of trading based on statistics, Scott and I are going to take a look at Netflix and see what's going on. What's the technical, statistical dynamic that is occurring right now with respect to Netflix? I'll give you a fundamental view of Netflix, Scott. What's happening from the Boscillator technical point of view?
Well, this is the daily chart here. You can see it was up near 300, and that was not too long ago, as you said. That was July 14th. Now it's down at 130, so that's a lot. That's well over half.
Yeah, that's a 60% drop within essentially 2 months' time.
That's not good. And 698 bars away. It is actually, even at 300, we were due for a trip back down to the 800. Now, whether it's going to be gradual or sudden, obviously we did not know, but it's actually been quite sudden. Is it likely that it's coming back to here? Well, it's only, quote-unquote, 698 bars away, but you see this gap and big bar down, it looks like it's going.
So the Boscillator is an indicator that measures the length of time that a financial instrument spends away from the 800-period simple moving average. It's pretty clear here to me, Scott, based on our calculations and based on the way that we look at things and how long we've been looking at this stuff. It's fairly clear to us right now that the worst has not yet been seen in Netflix, that it made a drop through a trend line on the daily chart, and hindsight is 2020, and obviously that would have been a great place to dump all of your Netflix shares, even at a $40 loss or a 12%, 15% loss. The question is right now, if I were hanging on to Netflix and I were wondering, where's the bottom? Well, the bottom isn't here yet, most likely, and it does appear that $100 or $107, somewhere between 100 and 107, down where that 800-period simple moving average is on the daily chart, that looks like the kind of place that this stock is headed, and that is a disaster. That's 2/3 of its value erased within 2 months, and a significant portion of that erased within just the last few days. These movements do come to an end, and the reason that this is happening right now is that there's a fundamental rejection of the plans put in place by the Netflix management to split off these services, and this is a panicked, perhaps overreaction from investors that has a possible stopping point in that $100 to $107 range, down where there's this. And what the Boscillator does is provide some context to this. All along, Scott, if we even cared about Netflix, which we didn't, you could see that this was becoming overextended on the Boscillator. I mean, this was not an unclear picture. We could see that something extraordinary was occurring, and that some kind of correction was way overdue back even in July, and probably especially on the 4-hour or the 1-hour charts even showed that more starkly and more obviously.
Well, once again, we've talked about it several times, especially in equities. Fair value is the 800. This is what the company is actually worth, and it was up there at 300. It was trading 300% or 3 times what it actually was worth. You could have not read a news article and just drawn your trend line, and you would have been selling the stock even if you didn't pay attention. But really, doesn't it mean that people were just looking for an excuse to bring it back to what it's actually worth? And that came out, whether that's tragic news or not, and whether that's a good business idea or not, doesn't matter. People were kind of looking for an excuse to bring it back to fair value, and this was it. But you didn't have to read anything to get back to fair value, get back to the 800. You didn't have to read a darn thing.
Yeah, and the fundamental picture is is certainly coordinating well with the technicals in this case. And it's sort of ironic that they made an offer to Starz to give them $300 million to continue streaming the programming. That offer was rejected. Starz will go off of Netflix streaming in February. And it's kind of ironic that the stock topped out at around 300. It's kind of dark and ironic and sad, all those things at the same time. But you didn't need to read the paper to know that statistically speaking, the stock was overvalued. You don't need to read a paper or anything else to realize that. You don't even need to look at the Bosslater to realize that this is probably not over yet, that investors have probably not stopped pummeling this stock. There's no real hope in sight. There's no announcement that they can make that's going to turn this around. And all along, the underlying economics of Netflix probably did not justify the market cap and the stock price that it was trading at. And it's just a matter of time before things that are overvalued correct in value. The crash of 1999 and 2000 is proof of that. The housing market crash is proof of that. Everything that is overvalued eventually goes back to where it's valued, and everything that's undervalued eventually goes back to that. I'd be interested to see what this looks like on the 1-minute chart, Scott.
It's a buy trade. Isn't that interesting?
So we're getting close in this trend, aren't we, Scott? That let's say this dropped another 30 points. We are way overextended on the downside on the 1-minute chart. It's due for a dip, and I mean this trend could go on. This is you would agree, Scott? I think that what's happening here is a fundamental disruption of Netflix. Like there's a fundamental. This is like finding out that this is almost as bad as finding out that they cooked the books. I mean, this is a really bad problem. They're losing customers, and the market is really hurting this bad. So it's not surprising that the Bosslater reading is over 1,000, and it could even reach 1,500. It could even reach 1,500. It could do that over the course of the next few days. It could, over the weekend, for example, open up on Monday and gap down. So we're still probably not through the thick of it yet. This isn't like a highly valuable stock that is temporarily having a rough patch like HP did when they misjudged the tablet market. That's a mistake. This is a fundamental giant error that is costing Netflix not just tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands and potentially millions of customers, and the stock's going to get pummeled accordingly. Scott, when it gets down to like 1,500 on the Bosslater, I'd be super interested in seeing if this has finally played out all the way, and if bargain hunters start to explore the possibility that Netflix has finally gone on sale and is ready for a rebound.
Yeah, minimum 1,500. Might be longer than that. I would draw. This is where trend lines beat indicators, in my opinion, because there's going to be a lot of stochastic buy signals. But to make it prove itself in a falling situation like this by drawing a trend line, I wouldn't be interested, or maybe even more of a horizontal line, just to make it prove that it's ready to go back to the 800. That's where I like a trend line. But it could go. This could retest or test this trend line several times. This could be 1,500, 2,000, even a 2,500 move potentially. Right. I think it could be for a while. But if it breaks, I'm ready to take. I'd be ready to buy it, no doubt about it.
The question I always ask with regard to fundamentals or panic or whatever else, in particular about the equities markets, is this: has the news cycle played out? Are we done talking about this yet? And the answer is absolutely not. There's just Netflix has not made the front page of Time magazine still. This is. We still have not seen Netflix necessarily on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It is just as likely that Netflix will announce another boneheaded decision before this is over. There's no indication that they've gotten a handle on this or that they've done enough damage control to contain this. From a fundamental perspective, you don't need to do an enormous amount of research to know that, to figure that out. The question now is, can an investor who thinks that in the long term Netflix is poised to benefit greatly from streaming content and mobile devices, could somebody wait longer here and put a long-term value trade in play when it's fallen down and lost 2/3 of its value at the $100 mark or 107, or really only dropping another $20, which in the midst of this whole thing, that could just happen tomorrow morning when Reed Hastings announces that Netflix is going to get in the business of selling cars or something. And we have yet to see the end of it. So that would be an interesting play, and I guess Scott will come back from day to day and check this out and follow this story as it develops technically and fundamentally for this stock.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I'm going to be watching it myself, so hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to talk more about it. Should be interesting.
If you're interested in the Bosslater or finding out more about how the Bosslater trading method applies to stocks, futures, or currencies, you can visit the website bosslater.bz and hear a special free presentation from Scott Welsh, the best Bosslater trader I ever knew in my whole life. And you can see if there's room left in the course to teach you all of the elements of Bosslater trading. Once again, all you need to do is go to bosslater.bz on your web browser, and you'll find that free interview.